going on, guys? It is MurderInc here, back with another Raid Shadow Legends video, and today we're going to be talking about the fusion, the epics. Which epic is going to be worth it for you to pursue if you're not interested in the current fusion legendary, or if you don't have the resources for it? Are the epics a better option for you and your account? So that's what we're going to be discussing today, so let's get right into it. Alright, so the first champion we're talking about is Demytha. This is a dwarf epic support champion, and she doesn't look that enthusiastic to be here. However, let's go over her kit. She looks pretty cool overall. I do like the aesthetics of this champion, a bit different from anything we've seen so far. The staff is cool for sure, cannot overlook that. Going over her A1, attacks one enemy 2 times, placing a shield buff for 2 turns equal to 10% of this champion's max health on the lowest HP champion. She's attack based. She has a ton of multipliers on her A1, a ridiculous amount of books, 2, 4, 6, 8. I don't think I've ever seen 8 books for a single skill before. So this is absolutely quite interesting. I have a hard time believing this is going to be worth 8 books overall. Moving on to Light of the Deep. Increases the duration of all ally buffs by 1 turn, then decrease the duration of all ally debuffs by 1 turn. Also heals all allies by 2.5% of their max health. Heals by a further 2.5% for each turn added to or removed from the duration of buffs and debuffs by the skill. As you can see here, on top of the 8 books from the A1, we have 2, 4, 5 books here, making 13 total. So far, just from 2 skills, we have 13 epic books. This is a 3-turn cooldown, and we offer a lot of healing as well as the debuff extension. So we have a lot of healing, we have ally buffs increase and decrease debuffs on our allies for 1 turn, which is definitely going to be strong, and we're going to see where we can use her. Moving on to the A3, we have a 3-turn cooldown with 2 books, making the tally of 15 total books here. Places block damage for all allies for 1 turn, and a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns. So after looking at this champion, none of her animations were anything special. We do have increased ally defense in all battles by 20%, which is nice, but overall this looks like a faction war champion, and you're going to see that theme among all of the new epics I'm going to show you here today. Plarium seems to have been watching which factions people are struggling with. Now that the Shadowkin faction is coming closer and closer to opening, time for you to get Lydia is decreasing day by day, and I do have to say a lot of these champions look specifically tethered and tuned to making faction wars a lot easier, so keep that in mind. It might be worth skipping a fusion if it does mean getting Lydia, because we all know how strong Lydia is. So overall, I wasn't too impressed with this champion's kit. Like I did just mention, she will help you out with dwarves faction wars. However, dwarves have been pretty beefy lately in that faction war department, so outside of that, she could be good for general use and progression. The next champion we're going to talk about is Duhr the Hungerer. Look at that, a face only a mother could love. This is an interesting champion here. It looks like we have 2, hopefully, puppets on his waistband. If those are actually real minions, that is probably the worst job you could ever have. Moving on to the A1, we have Odious Bulk. Attacks one enemy, has a 30% chance of placing a stun debuff for 1 turn, up to a 40% chance once fully booked. Next, we have an A2, Cannibal Litany. Places a 30% deflect damage buff on all allies for 2 turns, 3-turn cooldown once fully booked, 5-turn unbooked, a 15% continuous heal buff, then heals all allies by 15% of their maximum health. So as we can see here, Demon Spawn. Think about that. Demon Spawn, one of the hardest factions to get through if you don't have champions like Duchess. Yes, you can use Tanix. Yes, you can use Allure or 2 Allure to clear stage 21 of the faction, but this guy's going to make it so much easier because of his A3, Hungry for More. Revives 2 random allies with 50% HP, then fills their turn meters by 50%. This is a 4-turn cooldown, and of course we have a nice faction aura being defense. The next champion we're going to be talking about is Scabrius. We have another Skinwalker epic attack based champion. He looks pretty bland in my opinion, kind of like Skaven if you do know about Warhammer and the Games Workshop lore. Moving on to his A1, we have Gutter Knife, attacks 1 enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a 5% poison debuff for 1 turn, going up to a 70% chance of placing 1 poison. So not terrible on the A1, would be best with the counterattack, which we don't have from the Skinwalker faction, so hit or miss there. Moving on to the A2, Gnawing Horde, we have a 3-turn cooldown. 100% chance when booked of applying a leech debuff for 2 turns. This is going to be solid for faction wars. Once again, if you don't have someone like a Steel Skull, leech will be enough to keep your team topped off. Granted, you do have enough damage on your team to self-heal from leech. Moving on to the A3, we have Vicious Spite, a 4-turn cooldown once booked, 5-turn without, attacks one enemy with a 75 up to 100% chance of placing a weaken debuff, also places increased attack buff on this champion if the weaken is in fact placed. So another decent source of damage for this champion if you're looking to get through stage 21, because it is a race against time if you're not familiar with that faction, where you have to kill the boss before he health swaps and full heals again. Moving on to his passive, damage increases by 20% when attacking enemies under poison debuffs. So we have strong synergy with the A1, although it is a small chance and you only have 2 turns to capitalize on this passive. Once the poison is in fact placed on the boss, it still does show promise. Now for the next champion we have Thylessia, the thick champion that made all of our eyes so wide in the thumbnail. Night Revenant, attack based epic champion here. I'll just keep it on this view because it's honestly what we need. Although the front aesthetic isn't terrible. That face though, what's going on with that? I think they could have done a better job on the face. Personally, it looks like some type of reconstructed doll figure. Almost looks like an Egyptian theme with the dark eyeshadow and that ink over her lips there, but that's the basic point, so we'll leave it on this view right here and talk about Weft of Madness. This is the A1 ability, attacks one enemy having a 50% chance of applying the debuff spread effect, taking one random buff from the target and placing it on all enemies under hex debuffs. That 50% chance will go all the way up to 70% if you do fully book this champion. Moving on to Shrieking Voices, attacks all enemies, increases the duration of all debuffs on all enemies by 1 turn. This is a 3-turn cooldown. The books only increase damage, so it's not going to be needed. Next we have the A3 Melancholia, 3-turn cooldown, 4-turn if not booked, attacks all enemies, replaces a 60% defense down debuff for 2 turns. If you know about Night Revenant, Faction Wars, stage 21, this is huge for that. Having a defense down makes it so much easier to clear the waves, because the waves in my opinion are a bit harder than the boss on this faction. However, this champion is quite unique. Despite certain other visual features of the champion, we have this passive here: when attacking enemies under decreased defense, we have a 50% chance of placing a hex debuff on them for 2 turns. So initially this sounded really good to me. I went into some dungeons. I first tested her out for damage. Unfortunately, her damage is extremely underwhelming, so something like a stun set on this champion is going to be fantastic. Taking a look at her base stats, 12,000 health, 1,000 defense, nothing crazy, insanely low health, so it's going to be very hard to gear this champion. Base speed isn't terrible, but like I said, don't be fooled by the 1400 attack, because she is not that impressive as far as output and damage dealing goes. So my initial point here was, I said, what if I just bring a separate champion outside of Faction Wars, apply the defense down. The part that really gets me here is having a 50% chance of placing Hex when you have a kit that synergizes around that Hex debuff with that A1 so well. In my opinion, this should have been a 100% chance. Maybe that is too good for an epic. However, adding something this strong as a passive, giving it a 50-50 chance of happening, is quite unfortunate, especially when you have double AoEs here. If you elect to not build her with accuracy, defense down, weakens already on the target, she uses 2 AoEs and you can end up only seeing a single hex debuff on the enemy waves for the next damage dealing champion you have to go, or for Thylessia's second attack that you hadn't previously used. So with that being said, let's do what we normally do and take a look at the animations. Some of them are really cool. First animation I do want to look at is going to be, you know what, let's throw that dwarf back in here, because why not? Let's sort this by recently used. Let's throw all of our champions in here so we can take a look at the animations. Okay, the first skill, the only damaging ability this champion has, is going to be Odious Bulk. Now I think this is a really cool looking ability, and what I want to do on this video after I show you all these animations is build this guy with full damage just because, and you'll understand why momentarily. So this is what we're dealing with here. Arms coming out of the ground, stabbing the opponent, simply savage. Now the second champion here that I was extremely impressed with his animations is going to be this new rat here. Gnawing Horde is such a cool ability, and you are going to see why right now. so there we have it. A swarm of rats comes out of nowhere, demolishes the whole wave, and then keeps running after that. I think it's such a cool animation, and hopefully we see more there. Once again, we did see the skeleton hands with knives in it. I'm not sure how many other champions in the game have that same effect, but I did think it was very cool. Here's the A1 ability now. Another really cool rat effect where they appear out of nowhere, swarming a target, all jumping on them. So I really like how they did with animations there. Moving back to this guy here, stabby stabby. Next we have our Night Revenant champion here. Let's use the A2 Shrieking Voices. Nothing too crazy there. Definitely some cool effects. Now we have the dwarf, who is definitely disappointing. As we can see, it's just two kind of comets or blue stars attacking the target. Now for the rat's A1 ability. Your typical slash effect. Let's use this A1 here. Try to... Okay, we'll use the gnawing hood one more time because it was so cool to see. Rat's attack for sure. He's probably a champion I'm going to get and build just because of how cool that animation is alone. As far as the other animations, they're pretty simple and what you can expect from any type of buffs that a champion will get. Let's go ahead and use this A1 and cycle back through to this Night Revenant using her A3 ability, Melancholia. So we do have this vampiric dark red vibe coming from her as far as AoE goes. Not that impressive. Now we can see the blue stars once again. I think the highlight champions are definitely going to be the rat and the blob here. I'll just call them a spiky blob for now, because these animations are definitely brand new and really cool to see on these champions. Now that we've gone over that, I've play tested all of these champions here. Scabrius, I've put him in full damage and it's not that impressive, to be honest with you. So if you are going to gear him for faction wars, I would not just fully invest in damage. Like I said, I've tested Scabrius and Thylessia in my best damaging gear, and they're over 100,000 damage per hit, less than the top damage dealers in this game. Now, of course, these champions shouldn't be competing with the top damage dealers in the game, but 100,000 damage is extremely significant. And if you wanted to compare these two to the #1 AoE damage dealing champions in the game, they're over 250,000 damage less per hit. So as I'll say again, I would not invest in full damage in these champions. They offer a lot of utility, having AoE abilities. Now what I want to do is, I am curious about Duhr, his multipliers, assuming it is a him, of course. Let's go to recently used. Let's go here to Duhr. I believe we scale off of attack. Perfect. So as we can see, our realistic build for this champion is going to be speed, accuracy, HP, defense. I do like reflex a lot because we have really strong cooldowns. Reflect damage, continuous heal is strong, on top of a revive on a 4-turn cooldown. Any chance to reduce that increases your chance of success regardless of where you're using this champion. So what I want to do now, simply for fun, is go ahead and put my best damaging ability gear that I can find on this champion here. I believe it's currently on the rat, although the rat is built for a little bit of accuracy as well, which we really don't care about. So let's go ahead, find some hegemon gear, find the good stuffs, and I will see you once I've fully built this champion to be the monster he should be. Okay guys, so now that I finished building it, in case you're wondering on the normal masteries that we would use, this is what I would recommend for all content for Duhr the Hungerer as far as champions go. However, we are going to swap this just for fun to pure damage here. Let's go straight with that one-shot build. Even though it is single target, I think it could be fun to see how much damage he does do on that A1 ability. Let's go ahead and take Helm Smasher here. Let's get some extra stats with the Lore of Steel mastery, and we should be game, set, and match. Okay, so final stats for this champion. 4,800 attack, 189 speed, 100 crit, 245 crit damage. A bit low, but he has extremely low base attack, 50% crit damage, so he's missing 13% on the base there. Let's go ahead, take this guy for a spin in the campaign and see what's going on here. All right, we're looking at no defense down, no weaken in the campaign first. Let's see what happens. Okay, 67,000, extremely disappointing in the damage. You know what? I don't even want to look at this anymore. Let's head straight into something like a dungeon. Let's go dragon. We are green affinity, so red affinity is perfect for us. We have an attack aura. Let's go ahead, recently used. Let's see how strong this A1 is. Hopefully it's impressive and it's not disappointing, or I just could be totally wrong, wanting it to work much better than it's going to. Here's this defense down weaken here. All right, let's use this A1 ability on the right champion. Stab, 124,000. Fun fact, this champion hits just as hard as a support champion as the other two AoE champions, being the Rat and the Night Revenant Epic. So even though this is a support champion, her A1 ability, it's a single target hit. These are the same exact numbers I was seeing, some of them a little bit higher on the Night Revenant champion, ranging from 180,000 damage per hit in the AoE, but 120,000 damage, nothing too impressive. I just like the animation, so I wanted to test it out for you guys. Alright guys, that's going to conclude my video today. Which champion is looking the most promising to you guys? Are you going to be going for the Fusion Legendary? Are you going to stick with one of these champions? Are you hard stuck on the Faction Wars? Are one of these epics going to make a huge difference for you? Let me know in the comments, give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. Are these good epics? For a fusion like this, we do know it's going to be a hybrid fragment fusion, and these are generally a lot harder than the normal ones, so I'm curious about your feedback if you think any of these champions are going to be worth pursuing. Alright guys, as always, if you enjoy this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in the next upload.